Okay, so picture this, right? It's Saturday morning, you've got that coffee going, beautiful day outside, you're thinking about just relaxing, but then boom, you notice that leaky faucet's at it again.
Happens to the best of us.
It does, it really does. And it's funny how these little home projects, they just have a way of, hanging around on the to-do list, becoming bigger things in our
Oh,
minds.
yeah. Procrastination at its finest.
Exactly. Well, speaking of tackling those projects, you sent us something interesting info on Frank Handyman Services out in Portland. I
I
said,
saw that. Sounds like someone might be considering calling in reinforcements.
maybe, maybe. So we're diving into that today. What's the deal with handyman services? Are they worth it? What do they even do? Let's find out.
Let's do it. I'm ready to get handy.
All right. First things first. I hopped onto Frank's website. Classic first step, right? And they seem to do it all seriously, from fixing those pesky leaky faucets we were just talking about, all the way to redoing a whole kitchen or bathroom.
It's interesting you mentioned that range of services because it really reflects a bigger trend we're seeing. The handyman industry's blown up recently, and it's not just because people have busier lives than ever.
Yeah, why is that?
Well, people are holding on to their homes for longer now, which means those homes, they need more love and care as they get older. And honestly, sometimes it's just easier to call an expert than DIY.
You're telling me.
Yeah.
Anyway, as I was browsing Frank's site, one thing that really stuck out was how much they talk about being professional. They mention licensing, insurance, background checks. It's almost like they're trying to put your mind at ease before you even ask,
See, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. They're clearly trying to address a real concern that a lot of people have in this industry.
which is,
Well, let's be real. The handyman world, it's got a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to, qualifications. Some are great, but some not so much. Frank's basically saying, look, we're the real deal. You can trust us.
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you know what else I noticed? They keep mentioning their experienced, well-trained crew, like word for word in different spots on the site. Makes you think maybe they're trying to set themselves apart from, your buddy's cousin who's pretty good with a hammer.
Right. Like, there's a difference between asking your neighbor to help you paint a wall versus hiring a professional crew?
Huge difference.
One might get the job done eventually, but the other one, they're going to get it done right, probably faster, and without you having to explain every single step.
It's about the peace of mind, knowing it's done right by someone who actually knows their stuff.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
you wouldn't want someone who just watched a YouTube video on electrical wiring to rewire your entire house, would you?
Absolutely not. I'm getting chills just thinking about it.
Exactly. So when Frank emphasizes their well-trained crew, it shows they get it. They know what customers are worried about, especially with bigger projects like those bathroom and kitchen renovations they're advertising.
And speaking of those renovations, have you seen the before and after photos on their website? Some of them are pretty impressive. Like one bathroom went from, I don't know, 1970s avocado green to this, like spa oasis. It's
Yeah.
wild.
I've seen them. They're pretty convincing. Nothing speaks louder than seeing the actual results.
Totally. So look, we've established Frank seems legit, at least from their website. But how do you know if they're the right fit for you, for your specific needs as the person listening right now?
That's the million-dollar question. And to answer that, we need to look beyond the marketing and really break down what matters most when you're choosing a handyman service.
All right, let's get into it. What are the things we should be thinking about here?
Well, I think a good place to start is customer feedback.
You mean like those testimonials they've got all over their website?
Exactly. Now, I know those glowing reviews can seem like, typical marketing stuff,
Yeah.
but hear me out. They can actually tell you a lot about a company, not just the good stuff either.
Okay, interesting. So we're not just skimming past the Frank is amazing comments.
Not exactly. Look closer. Look for patterns. Are a bunch of people saying they're super punctual? Do any mention problems? Like, did the project go over budget or were there communication issues?
Right, right. I see what you mean. Actually, I am noticing a lot of comments about Frank's team going above and beyond, like fixing something small they noticed,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't part of the original job.
There you go. That tells you something about their attitude. It's one thing to just check off the boxes on a job list, but it's another to really care about the work and the customer.
Yeah, those little things probably make a big difference, especially when it's your home they're working on.
Absolutely, it builds trust, and that's huge in this industry. Now, on the other hand, watch out for testimonials that sound too generic or, too good to be true.
Right, like Frank is a miracle worker who rebuilt my entire house in an hour using only a sponge and his bare hands.
Exactly. I'm sure Frank is skilled, but come on. Look for specifics, details that sound like real experiences.
This is making me think about that time I tried to fix my leaky sink myself. Let's just say it did not go as planned. Ended up calling a plumber anyway, tail between my legs.
We've all been there. And it's a good reminder that we all have our limits.
And there's no shame in knowing when to DIY and when to just call in a pro.
Exactly. It's not always about saving money or time. Sometimes it's about knowing the job will be done right, and you won't have to worry about it later.
Okay, I feel like you're about to drop another truth bomb on me, aren't you?
It all comes down to communication. How responsive is Frank's team? Do they explain everything clearly up front, including the costs? Those are crucial questions to ask.
Now that you mention it, Frank's website does highlight their customer support system.
Yeah.
Something about being available 24/7 for emergencies even.
See? That's a good sign. They understand that communication is key, not just at the beginning, but throughout the entire project.
Right, because who wants to be stuck wondering what's going on?
Yeah.
Especially when it's something important like a home repair.
Exactly. I mean, good communication can make all the difference in the world. It can turn a stressful situation into something that's smooth and easy.
Totally. Okay, so we've talked about those customer reviews, knowing what you can and can't handle yourself and why communication is so important. But there's one big thing we haven't really touched on yet, and I'm sure everyone's thinking it.
The cost. Let's face it, that's usually the deciding factor for most people, right?
100%.
Yeah.
I did see Frank's website mentions competitive rates and they do free estimates. But what does that really mean for the average person who's thinking about hiring them?
That's a really good point. We all have different ideas of what's affordable, right?
Yeah,
What seems reasonable to me might be totally out of reach for someone else.
totally.
That's why getting a detailed quote up front is so important.
So don't be afraid to ask for a full breakdown, right? Like,
Yeah.
how much of the cost is for labor versus materials?
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to shop around a bit. Get quotes from a few different handyman services. It's the best way to compare not just the pricing, but also what each company offers and even how well they communicate.
It's like test driving a car before you buy it.
Yeah.
Want to make sure it's the right fit.
Exactly. And while, yeah, the cost is a big deal, don't let it completely overshadow everything else. Remember those other things we talked about, like experience, reliability, and good communication? Those are all part of the package.
For sure. Because sometimes that cheap option ends up being more expensive in the long run. Either the work is bad or you're dealing with a million headaches trying to get things fixed.
100%. It's about finding that balance.
Mm.
Quality work, dependable service, and a price that doesn't break the bank.
Right. So we've taken a deep dive here into the world of handyman services, and I think we've covered a lot of ground. But where does that leave us? Should you hire a professional like Frank or not?
At the end of the day, it's your call. But what I hope we've done here is give you the tools to make that decision, the questions to ask, the things to consider, all that good stuff.
Absolutely. And hey, maybe next time that leaky faucet starts acting up, you'll know exactly what to do, and it won't involve quite as much duct tape this time around.
And if you do decide you need a professional, at least you'll know how to find one.
Exactly. Always good to be prepared. All right, everyone, until next time, keep those projects moving. And remember, sometimes it's okay to call in the pros.